And I was reflecting the last couple of days when my team was taking me through what we are doing here. And, as I grew up from 1997 in India's capital markets, uh, India's capital market and the public market specifically were responsible for funding India's growth. In even a greenfield project, you take companies like Reliance Industries, you take companies like these Abu Steel, all of them raised money through an IPO, even for greenfield projects. And the reason was that private market capital had limited availability and less maturity in the country to be able to build private companies. And if you look at the last 10, 20 years or 15 years, that scenario has completely changed. It has actually gone through a full change. And today, the kind of private companies that we see, some of them are larger than public companies, as you will go through the list. They are extremely well-run businesses, and their return ratios, as well as some of the other financial ratios that you see, are sometimes even healthier than you see in public companies. So it's a very, very interesting change, and value creation now is not restricted just in the public markets and going public and creating value. In fact, significant amount of value creation now is being created in the private markets, in private companies. And if you look at the data of the last 2 years, you will see that many of these private companies have come to the public markets to exit and get liquidity. They've not come to the public markets to raise growth capital. In fact, last year we saw more offer for sales than we have in any other year. And this could be private equity exiting, this could be promoter blocks. All kinds of exit and liquidity options are now available to the public markets for private companies who've raised growth capital through private equity. That's another very big change. And why we were doing all of the work, for this exercise, there are a couple of reasons why these private companies, are large. One of the first key reasons is just the sheer growth of the private equity firms in the country, whether global and now even local, right? They've taken a very long-term view on India. They are able to support companies from a 5 to 7 year horizon. Just the deep pool of capital private equity represents, and they're able to invest in a big way, is allowing Indian founders and promoters to have a much longer term vision for their businesses before they actually list. So this is one fundamental reason why you are seeing this kind of growth and these kind of companies in the private sector. The second point is just the ability to innovate and the ability to target new markets. Right? Look at Q-commerce as a sector. Right? It is a new space. Q-commerce does not even exist anywhere in the world. So when you have private capital, which is going into private companies, they're allowing companies to turbocharge growth and even pivot when necessary. Right? Which is very difficult to do sometimes when you're already a public company. So this is enabling a lot of innovation and also enabling new markets getting opened up by private companies and not necessarily always by matured public companies. So that's a very important point, innovation and new markets opening up and new sectors opening up. Third is just the way these companies are managed. The boards are smaller, sometimes more effective. The boards are not focused on Q delivery. They're focused on a more longer term delivery of the business, which allows more flexibility many a times for these managements to plan better. And also being private, the incentive structure for the key management, right, as well as a lot of the employees who are creating the value for the company, is easier to structure. It's more difficult to structure when you're a public company. For example, you can have targets based on an IPO. You can have targets scaled 2 to 3 years and not quarter on quarter. So these things in a private board setting allows for much better decision making many a times, and it does in a public company. So lots of advantages. I can keep talking about them, but these are some of the few advantages which we've seen that private companies have over many of the listed companies. And as we take this forward, we see that India's growth story over the next decade or 2 decades is going to be led equally by unlisted companies as well as listed companies. You heard some of the statistics earlier. I mean, just the sheer scale and size at which these private companies are operating. I mean, as I said, some of them are larger than their public counterparts. And we as JM Financial see this growth continuing. Private equity capital is not stopping. They're going to keep investing and keep promoting private enterprise. And promoters understand the value of being private for a longer period of time, establishing your business model better before you actually list the company. So I think the growth that we will see in the unlisted space is here to stay. I'm hoping this list of 100 will constantly evolve and maybe evolve faster, and we see more and more additions of new companies coming into the list. And this also becomes a big feeder for India's public markets, where players like mutual funds and insurance companies who don't have access to many of these companies will be able to broaden their investment sort of portfolios and also diversify them a lot better. So I think very, very excited about what we are doing here. And it's very important that we recognize and we showcase these companies, through the media, through all of you, and let the public at large be aware of what is really going on in the private space in India. So as we look ahead, we think the private space is as important as the public space, and I congratulate all of the companies featured in this list, and I'm sure that together the private companies and public companies will really shape the next chapter of India's growth. Thank you.